All right, welcome back, everyone, yet again to another episode of the Bodybuilding Breakdown. I'm joined again by none other than Bob Cicherillo. Bob, thank you again for joining me, man. How you doing?
What's up, Kenson? Good to see you again, buddy.
Yeah, you as well. You as well. You've been busy again for this first half of the bodybuilding season.
Very, yes. I'm all over the place. Overseas, I just actually got back from Mexico. Big show that was there last week called the Fit Weekend. Great show. Buddy of mine, Felix, put that on. Thousands and thousands of people in attendance. Like, it was huge. And I've been back to Mexico City since 1988. That's how long it's been since I've been there. So it was kind of cool to get back there and kind of see the changes that have gone on. But this show in particular, a great show, a lot of superstars there in attendance, a lot of star power. So from Mexico to Pittsburgh, and here I am.
Yeah, that's crazy. You don't often hear of bigger shows happening in a place like Mexico. You would think it would be more of a destination for shows since it's such a vacation destination when you think about it.
He could do, I mean, he had the NPC worldwide show there. He didn't have any pro stuff, but he had a lot of pros. So it's the expo that was huge, and it was, hundreds of booths and thousands of people. So he did really well, and the people, they come out and support. I tell you, some of those type of places, you would never really think that they're on the map when it comes to bodybuilding, but they love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to see a few more shows pick up down there. But when it comes to Pittsburgh, I mean, man, what a show, Bob. The internet is absolutely exploding over Pittsburgh. I haven't seen reaction like this over a show this early in the season in years.
Yeah. Listen, Pittsburgh delivered, okay? I mean, it's the best way I can put it. A lot of hype coming in there. First year event in terms of the men's open and supersizing this into an expo, which they did a great job. Big congratulations. Hats off to the Manion family and Robin Chang and his production crew, Bob Lorman. There's a lot of people involved in putting this production on. And it was an A1 production. Lighting, staging, expo itself. The lineups were very good. Again, right up there with the Arnold and, all en route to the Olympia. So it delivered on every front and literally in every division. They were all well stocked. Of course, the big conversation, the big hubbub on the internet is Nick versus Derek, and that's all you've been hearing since we got off that stage.
That has been the conversation. And you know what? I feel like this is going to carry over into, so oftentimes when we have these shows happen earlier in the season, things kind of get forgotten about, when it comes to getting closer to the Olympia. But this is one that I think the momentum's just going to continue to carry, and partly because Derek and Nick have massive followings as well. But
sure,
yeah, it was absolutely insane to hear Tyler Manion's breakdown as well. I don't know if you saw Tyler's breakdown at this point or not.
I saw some of it. I actually thought, from what I saw, it was very well spoken. And what I liked about what Tyler put out there is he didn't leave any elephants in the room. He right off the bat, he addressed the conspiracy theorists, and he put his own stuff out there. He normally doesn't do that for obvious reasons, and I get that. But he actually said, "This is how I voted," and he was the head judge. And just to show people, and he's being 100% honest. He had Martin Fitzwater in New York last year with the famous Martin versus Nick, and it went Nick's way. And in this competition, he had Nick, and it went to Derek. So what does that prove to everybody out there? Well, for all those that think it's just the head judge and nobody else counts, that's clearly not the case. And he made no apologies for it. That's why we have 9 judges. It's a consensus. And that's what it was. And it was tied. By the way, for the mathematician masterminds out there, and I've gotten this all week since we've been there, trying to figure out how we had a tie. It's you don't even know how the judging works. You don't even know what the hell you're talking about. It's an odd number of people. There can't be a tie. Well, I'm here to tell you there can. And here's how it happens. There's 2 rounds. Nick won the first round. Derek won the second round. That's a tie. So everybody trying to overthink this thing. It's like, guys, it's that simple, okay? It was 8-7 in the morning for Nick, and it was 8-7 for Derek at night, okay? That's how we get into what I call sudden death, or you can call it round 3 or overtime, whatever you want to call it. That's how we got to that point. And then you got to make a decision. And listen, it could have gone either way when it's that close. It could go either way. And this time it went Derek's way. I think it could have gone either way in New York last year for Martin and Nick, and it went Nick's way. So it's just, honestly, it's just a consensus. And you start looking for details when it gets that close. It's that simple.
Yeah, I think that Tyler referencing the fact that bodybuilding is a subjective sport and, the human factor behind judging will always be in play is
Sure.
very important as well. Tyler, I think he's been doing a really good job by doing these wrap-up videos, because there's one thing that the wrap-up videos have really accomplished when it comes to, people really wanting to know. The fans of bodybuilding have said for years that they want more transparency from the judges, more insight really on how these decisions and why these decisions are really made by the judges. And there's no getting around it. We are definitely getting that. Whether you agree with Tyler or not, you are definitely getting it directly from the source, the vice president of the organization. When it comes to the politics thing, he addressed that right away in his wrap-up as well. If we could consider the political decisions, fueled behind Derek taking home the win, which has been something that I've seen a lot of people say. Arguments made amongst a lot of the fans is that Derek winning the show is better for bodybuilding. But, when Tyler addressed the fact that, that Nick has such a massive following and that really the storyline would be created, to be a better storyline by Nick taking home the win rather than Derek, because we already had that massive upset by Derek already. So Nick coming in and then mixing up that top three at the Olympia. These are the things where I really can't buy into the political decision of this at this point. The robbery conversation was another one. I said it in my last video that I really don't think that this would be considered a robbery. I said it before Tyler made his video, before I even watched your video. Robberies are when it is very clear that somebody has won.
Right.
And I maintain that this was close. So robbery, I don't think is by definition applicable for this show.
Well, and here's the thing to your point on that, right? Here's a good example of a robbery that took place in bodybuilding world. Okay, and you got to go back to the old days for this. Danny Padilla not winning the 81 Olympia and Franco winning. That was a robbery. Okay. Unfortunately, Danny's been on the recipient on this for a few times. Danny scoring a perfect 300 at the 79 Night of the Champions over Robbie Robinson and losing the show. That was a robbery. Nick versus Derek was as close can be. That doesn't make it a robbery. That makes it a very close show. And as Big Steve explained on one of the podcasts that I saw him on, listen, it could have gone either way. It was that close. And at the end of the day, what it came down to for him was the fact that Nick started fading at the end when we went into OT with the posing and the pose down with them. And Derek started getting a little sharper. And it was literally, that's all you needed to pick a winner at that point. To me, you go by details when it's that close. And these guys are apples and oranges. They don't have similar physiques at all. They're completely different. That's what makes it interesting. Half the judges like one guy, half the judges like the other guy.
But it still can't be ignored the fact that the masses of bodybuilding fans are very, very upset about the fact that Nick did not win this show. I don't think that it would be the same if Nick had won. I don't think people would have been as upset that Derek didn't take home the win. So why do you think that is if it was a close show?
Well, listen, Nick's got a huge fan base, and people like the freaks, right? Listen, Nick is a self-admitted freak. He calls himself the mutant, right? So he knows he's not shaped like Bob Paris, okay? He's not fooling anybody. He embraces it. He wears it. I applaud him for that. And those type of fans in bodybuilding are fanatics, right? That's what they do. They love their guy, and they're going to support him, and they're going to defend him no matter what happens. The conspiracy stuff is funny for any of us that are on the inside because it doesn't make any sense. So that's why we kind of laugh it off most of the time. Everybody thought Derek was the man, right? He was the guy. He was Mr. Olympia. And then he took third in the Olympia. So, okay, well, that didn't happen. They picked Samson, right? Then he goes to the Arnold, and he wins the Arnold. Great. I didn't have any issue with that. I don't think anybody really did. So now he comes into this show. Well, he's already qualified. Nick's not. In a conspiracy world, if Nick had won, people say, well, they gave it to him because, listen, Derek's already qualified, so that doesn't make any sense. You got to get Nick in there. So these are not things that judges are thinking of when they're judging. Trust me, people, okay? They're up there trying to pick a winner. They don't know who's with who. The biggest joke is that like when the trainers' names come in the thing. Like I can't keep up with who's training who dropped this guy, picked that guy. I used to train with him, then he fired him, now he hired him back. I can't keep track of it. The judges really couldn't care less who trained who and out of what gym and whatever, or what sponsor or supplement company they're with. These things make nothing. But this goes back to the beginning of time. I remember Jay Cutler, when he was with Weider and then signed with MD. Well, no MD athlete's ever going to win the. Okay, and then he won. No Muscle Tech athlete. He left Muscle Tech. They were the main sponsor. Well, if he left them, he's not going to win, and then he won. And so on and so forth. You go back to Lee Haney when Lee Haney signed with Twin Lab back then, and didn't move out to California. That was supposed to be the kiss of death. All he did was go on to win 8 Olympias. So you can see where some of these things are just silly and they really don't add up. It's just excuses. Bottom line is sometimes the other guy just happened to be a little bit better.
Okay. It's funny when you say the fanatics of bodybuilding when it comes to the fan base, because when it comes to the size of, the audiences that these guys seem to have, Nick is at 1.5 million subscribers on Instagram. Derek is at 1.4. These guys are very similar, I know, when it comes to their YouTube followings as well. So from those metrics, do you think that Nick has more of a fanatic fan base than Derek does?
Oh yeah, listen, the people that like the freaks, so to say, and freaks this is the only industry that you can use the word freak and it's actually an embraced
and it's a good thing
term.
Yeah,
like any bodybuilder, you call him a freak and he goes, oh, thanks, man, I appreciate that. It's an endearing term in bodybuilding circles. But that said, yes, his fans they like what they like, right? They had some muscle show, they big gnarly muscle and all that kind of stuff. Great, I'm all for it. The bodybuilding purists, traditionalists, whatever you want to call them, are not as big in numbers as that. But depending on how you look at it, okay, because the most popular bodybuilder on the planet isn't either one of those guys. It's Chris Bumstead by 20-fold. Well, he's got 1.5 and this guy's got 1 million and that guy's got 2. Chris has like 25 million followers. Now, make no mistake, he's not in board shorts. He's not in some other weird. He's a bodybuilder. It's classic bodybuilding. Bodybuilding by every sense of the word, okay? He's the most popular on the planet. There's a reason for that. And that's because they're not, the only difference is the purists, they're not as vocal. They're not out there talking shit on the internet. They're not out there talking smack against people. There's a lot more of those fans out there than anybody thinks, but they're at work or they got stuff to do or they just not going to get involved in that type of stuff. So you can kind of see that the people separate themselves from each other when it comes to the fan bases. One just happens to be more vocal than the other.
Well, when it comes to Chris, I think that maybe it's not as comparable because Chris was always the clear winner. It was always a fight for second place with Chris. It's never been like that with Derek, and it's never been like that with Nick. In comparison, right? So, and I think Chris was just, man, part of it could be right place at the right time when it came to his following as well. Good business decisions.
Absolutely.
But I do understand what you're saying as well. Mark, sorry.
What I'm saying is his popularity is there. Listen, this is a guy who's got a beautiful physique. He won 6 Olympias, good-looking kid, right? Represents, well-spoken, puts it out there. And he represents bodybuilding very well. But he represents, again, what I call more traditional bodybuilding, especially in the classic division. So that's a huge fan base. And it's huge enough that he's got 25 million people following him. If you put all those other guys at the Olympia combined, they're not even close. So it kind of tells you a little bit something about not only Chris himself as a person and as a pro athlete, but also about what people really like. Like I said, there's a lot of people who do like traditional physiques, bodybuilding, shape, symmetry, proportion, again, all those ideals. They're just not as vocal as the crazies out there. And we like them both. Listen, we embrace them all. We'll take them all.
Sure, especially when it comes to subscribers. Mark, we'll take any subscriber we can get.
That's true.
That is very true. Sorry, but Mark, you jumped in on a whirlwind there. Mark, Bob, Mark, I don't think that I've had you guys on.
Cicherillo.
What's up? Yeah, I've seen a few snippets of your videos. They're very interesting.
There's nobody done this more comparisons.
Great way to make a living, I guess.
So, By the way, I
Yeah.
did out of the few I did see, if you're going to use comparison shots, use some newer ones. I saw one thing you had where you were comparing me to somebody, and you're using pictures from my Masters competition.
Well,
What's up with that?
That was Phil Clahar.
Oh God,
See,
Phil Clark.
I didn't want to make it.
Are we still talking about this guy?
much.
Like seriously?
I wasn't the one that said he should have won. I didn't think he even should have been in the first call out.
Nobody
like
said he
Phil,
should have won, other than him and his wife. That's the only two people that thought. Oh no, I take that back. I take that back. I'm wrong. Matt, what's his name? Discord Matt. He thought he should have won, so I got to give him that. But
yeah, no,
pick any other subject. I don't want to waste 5 seconds on Phil Clahar. Okay.
But when it comes to Bob Cicherillo, I always get lots of views when I do your comparisons.
I hope so. Listen,
no, I do. You versus Nick got 10 times.
How did I do? Did I hold my own or
front double bicep? You might have beat him.
No, but come on, that's not even a question. I mean, if I beat him on anything, it's the front double bicep.
Well, I think it was harder. Obviously, it was harder to get a pro card back in your day. And when you were competing in like 2002, 3, 4, 5, you were probably better off if you were competing a few years earlier if you were a pro, whereas you were probably more in your prime.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I was around a long time, amateurs, especially. No, listen, it was a lot harder for a lot of reasons. The physiques were better. I mean, we don't have to go into all that stuff, but there was less opportunity. You had to win an overall. Even winning your class didn't get you there sometimes. So different time, different place. I really don't like comparing the guys of today. I threw that out for Nick because we were talking some smack back and forth. But I don't take back what I said. He would have had a difficult time back in that era turning pro. We had those guys like Mike Matarazzo and guys like that weren't, the most genetically gifted, but they were big muscular freaks and they had their own. But most of those guys traditionally either did not turn pro. I mean, listen, when we had guys like Mendenhall and Liedermeyer and Edgar Fletcher and Ken Cassignoli, these guys didn't turn pro. And you go back and you look at Matt Mendenhall back then and you go, holy crap, like how did this guy not get a pro card? Edgar Fletcher, some of the most beautiful lines and body I've ever seen on a body, couldn't get a pro card.
Become pro eventually? I thought he did.
Nope. No, never did. Never did.
Yeah, the playing field completely different, But I will say, I think that the 2020 so far, and I said this in a previous podcast I did, actually, I was on John Livia's show. I think the 2020s are stacking up to be more competitive, in the open especially, than the 2010s. What do you guys think of that?
Oh, absolutely. It's because there's no Phil Heath.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there's no front runner right now. Like you look at the Olympia, and I could be wrong, and somebody I'm sure will correct me. But we've had 4 out of the last 5 Olympians have been different people.
Yeah.
Right. You got Hyde, you got Big Ramy, you got Hadi, you got Samson, you got Derek. 4 out of the last 5 years is a different winner.
I think aside from Ramy winning twice, it is a record. I think.
I'm not so sure we're going to see a Phil Heath in our lifetime. I don't think we're going to see a Ronnie Coleman or somebody going 7 or 8. If that guy exists, he's probably not even bodybuilding right now. He's probably in school and he plays soccer or he's on a gaming, team or something. But that guy isn't out there right now. What we do have is it is very competitive. Any of these guys can beat each other, and they have. And then you got a couple other names you're going to throw in the mix. So let's just skip to the Olympia, right? You got the perennial 3, Samson, Hadi, and Derek. Okay, each with Olympia victories. Then you got to throw in Nick. You got to throw in Andrew Jacked. You got to throw in Behruz Tabani, if God willing, he can get here to the States to compete because he's that good. So you've got other guys here who are capable of winning an Olympia. Martin Fitzwater, even though he missed a mark on this show, and I just to interject, I did hear he's not going to New York, which I think is very weird and odd. I don't know why, Martin, if you decided to go in Pittsburgh, you wouldn't go another 6 days, get yourself down, and have a rematch with Nick. He almost beat Nick and should have beaten Nick in New York last year.
Yeah, the competitors list is out for New York, and Martin Fitzwater is not on that list. So that's it. The door is closed. That's
that's a tactical error in my. But it's like, again, listen, he's already qualified. Okay, so he didn't need the qualification. He decided to go into Pittsburgh, which I think was a smart move for Martin. I have no problem with that, right? Get out there and compete. Go for that 100 grand. Good for you. He put on some weight in the offseason, which he was very proud of. Unfortunately, the net result, okay, the gross was fine. He says he put on, I don't know, 20 pounds or something like that.
Yeah.
On bodybuilding terms, okay, the net might be a pound or two on stage weight. That's it out of that 20 pounds, okay? You're not going on 5-6 pounds heavier, which I believe is what he did. And it didn't elicit in a better physique. I think Martin would be the first to admit that now, and he dropped out of the running with those other two guys. That said, he's got 6 days. He could completely, listen, it's not like he was way off or he was like last or something, right? He could have whittled himself in condition this week with effort, obviously. It wasn't going to be easy, but he's a bodybuilder. He's a pro. He knows what he's doing.
That's right.
And he could have been showing up in New York, taking on Nick for a rematch. And listen, he's got the tools to beat Nick. Whether you had him beating him or not last year at the New York, they were as competitive and close as this year's Derek and Nick. So I don't understand the mentality behind it. I think he's just losing a great opportunity to, if he could get one over on Nick, what does that do for him going into the Olympia? So,
that is a massive, that would be another turning point very early. Good. Yeah. I mean, he's only going to look better. I agree with you, Bob, with effort, no question.
Pittsburgh. So even if he gives him a run for his money, it's like, well, he almost beat him in New York.
Right.
Sure. For the Olympia, it'll be a closer match.
No, the fact of the matter is, with what Martin showed up with, he wasn't even part of the post-show conversation. You know, he hasn't even been part of it.
You didn't even hear his name. All you heard was Nick and Derek, and he got screwed. This guy got robbed, and Derek, and this and that. And that's fine, but you never even heard of Martin's name. It didn't even come into play because he took himself out because he was a little bit too full. If you look at his Olympia pictures versus what we just saw, he's good, but he's not great. And if he was great, he could have been up there. Speaking of great and good Vito, unfortunately, had to come out of the show with an injury, which I ran into Good Vito he was there in Pittsburgh. And let me tell you something, that black and blue, like that picture everybody saw that he had that little mark on his side, that little mark now is about that big. It's huge. It's black and blue, and whatever he tore up, and he says that he thinks it's part of the lat, like way up in the, where it ties in. He doesn't think it's going to be an impact, but yeah, I would have liked to have seen him up there as well. I think those four could have been very competitive, and I got to give props where it's due. William Bonac was excellent. He was in shape. Yeah. He was good. He's half a step where he used to be, admittedly, but he's still very competitive and he's still bringing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think
him and Martin.
Well, we spoke about that on the last podcast, Mark, how Bonac continues to improve despite being 43. I've never seen a competitor go over 40 and then get better.
I was wrong. He's 42. He's almost 43. I was wrong.
Okay. Even said anybody over 40, I have never seen them come in and get progressively better. Not to where he used to be, a number of years ago, but he has made significant improvements from, like 40 to now. And you just don't see that, you got to take your hat off for the guy.
Yeah.
You've only seen that twice, basically, in my opinion. Dexter Jackson, of course, the great, the one and only. Yes. He defies all the laws of physics.
And they never really went away for Dexter.
Roden. Yeah, Sean Roden, I got to give it. I was never a big Roden fan in terms of his physique, but he didn't win the Olympia until he was 44 or something like 43. That, or 43. Yeah. So I mean, you got to give it to him because he wasn't that good 2-3 years earlier than that. He actually improved and got himself in a position. He actually could take it from 50th.
Yeah. What's that, Mark?
I think he placed 5th the year before. 6th even?
Yeah, he worked his way up. Good for him. Kind of like Ronnie Coleman. Listen, Ronnie was no spring chicken by the time he got there. People tend to forget that Ronnie was around a while before he started winning the Olympias. I mean, he went from last in the Olympia to he was 8th or 9th, I think, in 97, the year before he won.
Yeah, placed 9th.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting about on its own. For all the bodybuilding historians out there, and I've submitted this for many years, if you go back to 97, he was a lot better than 9th, I think, in that Olympia. Yes. I talk about getting overlooked. We make that a point. It's like, wow, he was only 9th. Go back and look at that tape sometime, and I tell you, this guy should have been in the top 5 in 97. He just started kind of getting recognized a little bit more as we got into the rest of the beginning of 98. and then of course it was game over for the next 8 years. So, but yeah, it's not common. We don't see guys in their 40s getting better usually. This ain't fine wine.
No, it doesn't work that way. Now, Bonac was one
in
thing.
96, I think. I think they gave him a little push in 96. I think he did get into that top 6, and then for some reason 97 they put him back down. It's weird.
Well, look, Bonac was one thing, bit of obviously an anomaly in bodybuilding, aside from a couple of guys like mentioned. But outside of that, Michael Krizo coming into this show. Now, Bob, I wanted to ask you, from where you were sitting, everybody was saying that Krizo was one of the, if not the most conditioned guy on stage. Like, he was absolutely shredded to the bone. How did he really look conditioning-wise from where you were sitting?
So, Krizo, he was first of all, his conditioning was off the chart a week or two before the show. We all saw the videos. He was at the NPC offices, but that was filtered, which you could very obviously tell. By the way, guys, I've said this 100 times. I'm going to tell you 100 more. Do not put filtered shots out there. It's not helping your cause when you show up and you look like, what happened? Geez, I saw this guy last week and he was way sharper and all that. You are not helping yourselves, okay? Do not put unrealistic filtered or Photoshop pictures or video of yourself on the internet, because the judges see it too. And that's what they're expecting to show up on stage. So that said, listen, Krizo got himself back. Unfortunately, he didn't make any progress from the last time I saw Krizo. His arms and shoulders are ridiculous. They are world-class, can hang with anybody, best in the world. Problem is that's not where his problem is. His back needs a lot of work. He's got no glutes and no hamstrings, and it's very evident. His shape is not the best from the front. He's a little up and down. He doesn't have a big V taper because it's just the way his midsection is kind of built. His obliques are a little wide. So that doesn't help him. But I didn't see that crazy conditioning. I saw he was in good condition, very good. But he's just missing the mark, and his posing is atrocious. He needs to get some. Listen, if you're a professional bodybuilder, and I've talked to him a few times. He doesn't speak a lot of English, but I've talked to people that do that handle him. He knows his posing needs work, but you know what? You're a professional. I would be hiring somebody out there that knows what the hell they're doing, and do nothing but posing. Is it important? Well, go ask Big Ramy that, because the year that Big Ramy won the Olympia, his posing was, and I still give credit to Dennis James, because Dennis was working with him at that point on his posing in particular, specifically. And that's what literally won him the show, because the year before he was gassed. By the time they would do, he was the last one in a pose and the first one out. And it cost him the title, in my opinion. The next year was completely 180-degree different. He was the first guy in the pose and the last guy out. He could hold the pose. He could compose himself, his face. He wasn't laboring. When you see Krizo, he always looks like he's going to die. Like, he's got that laboring, the eyes and the mouth is kind of moving like, bro, take a breath. I mean, you okay?
Big cheeks sticking.
The cheeks are bellowing out, but he has got to get himself under control when it comes to his ability to present himself. But he has to. You guys will notice. You guys will notice this. You've been around the game long enough. Guys with really big, stupid arms like that. Another endearing term in bodybuilding, stupid. They always have weak backs. They always have weak backs. Ramon Dino was the same. Phil Heath was the same when he first started. When you take a look at the world's best arms in bodybuilding, like those guys, they always have weak backs, and that's because the arms take everything. The arms are doing all the work. They can't focus, or they can't get that mind connection to their lats. Phil, and to his credit, was able to conquer that, and he went on to 7, of course. But Krizo can't conquer that. He's finished.
Okay. Krizo actually did a video basically explaining what happened at the Pittsburgh. And he spoke about, actually, more than anything, kind of his nerves getting to him when it came to posing on stage and things like that. He said, I posed, at the JM Manion facility and felt great about it. But when it came to being on stage, which I actually found surprising, because I always took Krizo as somebody very confident, very confident. So I was surprised at that. And honestly, I think that that's maybe a little bit of an excuse. Your nerves are not going to get to you to the point where it's the shaking in the posing that he really needs to work on. When he's doing the side chest, very, very evident that the leg is just honestly just shaking like a leaf, man, and that's something that's been consistent over the last number of shows he's done for a number of years is, like you said, Bob, that's one thing he needs to fix. If he was to fix that, and I agree, definitely work on the back, he would be right back up there, fighting for top 10, top 8 spots at the Olympia. It's getting to be more of a deep playing field, so it's going to be tough for him.
The problem I have with a Krizo is, look, he's not new to the game. Okay, he's been training for years. Let's just say he's been training 20 years. Okay, it's not like he was unaware of these things, years ago, right? I remember my buddy Jeremy Freeman, who turned pro many, many years ago. He was from my neck of the woods up in Syracuse, New York. And he had a great physique, but he never had any triceps, right? His triceps were just very flat. He was a tall guy, 6'1", and his arms were long and lean. And, he finally got his pro card. Somebody asked him, he says, well, you're going to try to bring your tris up to compete. And he looked at me, he was like, well, don't you think I'd have been doing that all these years if I could? As if like I never saw my, oh, Jesus, holy shit, I better work on my tris now. It's like, listen, if I could bring them up, I would. I think the ship has sailed on a Krizo. I don't think he has the ability to bring his back up or his glutes or his hams thickness, or he would have done it already.
Yeah, I would love to see it. He's honestly as a fan of the sport, one of my personal favorites because of the freak factor. I've always been a fan of the freaks of nature. That's why I'm a big fan of
all
Nick
that
as
conditioning.
well.
Like, I don't care filter or not, right? If I got that kind of conditioning in those arms, bro, I'm walking around like I'm goddamn Hercules on that. I'm King Kong walking out there.
100%. As a fan, massive respect for. I love Krizo's physique, but on the bodybuilding stage, there's definitely improvements that need to be made. Mark, we talked about that on the last podcast as well.
Yeah, it's basically the only problem he has. He's got the shakes. He can't relax.
Yeah, and
that's
his just
back,
it.
Obviously, even when he hits the back double, he needs to open it up a little bit more.
Yeah, you can see he's Paul Dillette from the back. He absolutely cannot control. he can't control his lats. He can't feel the motion. You know who else was like that was Gary Stridham, and it hurt him very much. And he had a very difficult time feeling his back. And he just could not, get it to come out like that. The interesting thing about Gary, because I was good friends with Gary, I was trying to help him when he came back for that biotech show in Denver that Sean Ray put on years ago.
He looked good.
And he looked great there. I mean,
he did look good.
I was trying to help him with his posing, and his back double bite was horrendous. He's like, hey, can you give me a look? The funny thing is I says, all right, Gary, hit a front double bicep for me, right? He hits a front double. And it's a great shot for him, right? And I walked around. I said, just hold it. And I walked around to the back of him, and his back looked phenomenal. If I told him to hit a back double by, it was horrendous. Like, he pinched his shoulders, and he just couldn't bring his lats on, right? And I'm like, bro, when you go up there, just pretend you're doing a front double by to the curtain, right? Because it was a beautiful shot, but he could not wrap his head around that. And when he hit a back shot, he overhit it. I've been trying to teach a lot of young guys for years. Don't kill the shot. The harder you hit a shot, the more it looks the same. It doesn't look any different whether you just put your arms up or whether you're shaking and you see those guys right there sweating bullets. It's like, bro, that's not bringing out any more muscle. It's you're what we call killing the shot. And Gary couldn't do it. He just couldn't do it.
Yeah, there's an amount of there's an amount of flexing that you should do when it comes to being on stage. You can overflex. You can.
Very
definitely can.
Yeah.
And so Krizo, we will see again in New York. In fact, like I said, the competitors list for New York has been released. Bigger names going into this show. It's actually kind of an interesting one. Maybe not as deep of a lineup as what we've seen in previous years, but still, I think this is pretty good. We've got Nick Walker, of course. Yeah, Regan Grimes is one that's coming into it. William Bonac again. Colossus Ken for his pro debut. Yep, Sasan Haradi is coming back, after a very, very impressive showing. So there's some really good competitors going into this one.
Sasan, he brings a condition.
The only guy that can contend against Nick, if Fitzwater's obviously out, so he could have, but he's out, is Regan Grimes. And Regan is he is a big, huge question mark. Like, we have no idea what we're going to see. He's been off for a little bit. He's a big kid. He's a good-looking kid. He's got his back is very impressive, but He's got to be in condition. Do I think he can get in the condition to contend against Nick? Probably not. But I tell you what, if this kid got even close, if he can, he's like Samson to me. He's got to get to the 95%. He doesn't have to be 100%. You got to get to the 95 percentile. And then the fact that you have a bigger, broader, bigger V taper, nicer X frame, more pretty physique, whatever, would carry you over the finish line against a Nick Walker or a Sass or a Bonac, somebody smaller in stature, a little blockier, that type of thing. We just don't know. We haven't seen it yet. So I'm as curious as anybody that if we can see the best Regan Grimes. But again, I got to go back to the business of bodybuilding with these guys. And again, I don't know what the mentality is. I heard he's going to hit this show and then he's got other shows down the road he wants to do. Why would you bypass Pittsburgh, which was a lousy 6 days earlier, to then go to New York when you had $100,000 up for grabs? You could take out a champ or two, right? If you nail it, put some good coin in your pocket. Even second or third would have paid more than New York. I think is 30,000. Not that it's all about money, but I don't understand why you would bypass an opportunity when they're 6 days apart and you can drive from one show to the other. I don't get it.
Yeah, he could have given Martin a run for his money.
Who knows, right? I mean, listen, I would love to see a Regan Grimes who, again, has all the tools in the world. He's got a beautiful physique. He's very well put together. His symmetry, presentation, posing, again, it's all great. But we just have not seen enough of him to really give any opinion. I mean, to me, he could be first or he could be fifth. We just don't know.
It's unfortunate when it comes to Regan because it's not like he hasn't competed, in multiple shows in the past. We've seen him on stage enough at this point to know, essentially what he's going to look like. We know what Regan is all about when it comes to his shape and his symmetry and his proportions. If he's up in size, all the better. I don't think that it's affected his waist, which is the most important thing. No. And if he can put on the size to hang with guys like, Nick and Martin, well, then there's no reason that if he is in condition that he can't be, slugging it out with these guys, to try and make that first call out at the Olympia. It has always been the opinion of the bodybuilding world that Regan has that potential. Now, there's two factors when it comes. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Regan's been smart in his selection of shows. He's traditionally not selected shows that were very deep or any real superstars are in them. Listen, good for him on that. It will qualify you, but it almost reminds me of the Rocky type of thing where it's like, well, they're kind of padding you, like they're throwing you guys. They were setups. Listen, they were good. Like Mixon, they was good fighters, but you know what I mean. But they were setups,
killers. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
this guy's a killer, and that's the problem he's going to have with it. And maybe that's why he didn't go in Pittsburgh. I don't know. But clearly New York was not going to be Pittsburgh when it came to the lineup. It's a little bit easier, obviously. But listen, eventually you gotta face these guys on the Olympia stage anyway. So I don't know what the mentality is there. Maybe there's some sort of blueprint that he's got. Good for him. I like Regan a lot. He's a good kid. But again, if your idea was I'm going to compete more, well, you could have competed just 6 days earlier as well. So I wish him the best,
right.
But I think he's the only guy, in my opinion, that can give Nick a run if he's in the 95 percentile of conditioning. Has to be there.
There's two factors when it comes to Regan that could turn the tide when it comes to this show. One is he's working with Boss of Outlaw. Very well known for getting his competitors in shape the vast majority of the time. That's one. The second one is that when he just finished working with Milos, it was getting on to about a year ago now. Regan did an allergy test. And Bob, you might not be aware of this, but Regan actually did an allergy test to find out what kind of foods that he was allergic to. His primary carb source being rice, found out he was allergic to it, And, well, and that's something that he said was causing that inflammation in his body that did not allow him to get into that kind of condition. Well, this could be the show where if he is, looking at what he did through that allergy test and removing those things that may be causing inflammation. Again, I think Boss of Outlaw being very knowledgeable. Maybe this could be the show. If it doesn't happen this time, I think that the bodybuilding world will maintain their opinion of Regan being that a ton of potential and has never quite met it.
Quint Beastwood.
Yeah, Quint. It's funny. I haven't heard anything from Quentin. That guy. I expect big things from him because that kid's put together. But we haven't heard a lot from him. He kind of got back to specs. He put his sides back on. He was emaciated last year. I thought that guy could be up there in contention, just given his body parts. Yes, he does need a little work on a few things, but man, that he is a beast. And I haven't seen anything on him. I don't know what his plan is. I should reach out to him because I like what he offers and stuff. But he was in last year's New York. I'm surprised he's not in this year.
Yeah, he is prepping again, and the one that he's doing, I think it's going to be Tampa, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
that'd be good.
I mean, good for him. I mean, listen, he's another Andrew Jack if he can get his shit together. He's got big body parts. He's got a very small waist for a big man, and he's got calves. I mean, he's got some things a lot of guys don't have. Calves. Yeah, I mean, he's really, but whoever, again, I don't know all his particulars, but whoever he was working with or whatever he did last year, I've never seen something. He was a swizzle stick. When I saw him in the Meet the Athletes thing, he had his sweats on, and I thought to myself, all right, this is either really good or really bad because he looks tall and thin, like he looked thin, right? And you think either this guy's ripped to the bone or he's flatter than a pancake, and he was as flat as I've ever seen anybody, and it cost him. But I guess he switched coaches. He went to a different game plan. He's a good young talent. I'd like to see him in whatever he goes into in the later part of the year. Apparently,
Canadian.
Yeah,
too.
That was the he? Canadian too. That's right. Yeah. He trains
we
out of.
We all celebrate the other Canadian bodybuilders.
Yeah. Well, you don't have that many, so I don't blame
you.
There's
so few. There's so few of us.
We've got a few. We've got a few now. The playing field's not too bad. Robin Strand, Morton McDonald. We've got Hassan Mustafa. He's in Canada now. We're taking him. Okay, he's on Team Canada.
You can't claim him. Come on.
No, we're taking him, man.
We're taking
him.
Calendar. All right. We got Roy Calendar.
Hassan's another one that you'd like to see. It's like, bro, whittle it down 5-7 pounds. You're too big. Man. You don't have any separation. This guy's got more muscle, but again, it's that same mentality where you see a guy over and over and over, and it's like you have to make a major change here. And if not, he's going to be another one of those guys that just never make it back to the O.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The whole thing with Quint Beastwood was when he was working with Matt Jansen through the New York Pro, and the entire blow up and demise of Matt Jansen, as it were. That was a whole other thing. Quint primarily working just with himself right now, and I like to see that too. I think that if he would have been in shape for this New York Pro, it would have been a good storyline for him to come in bigger and better to this New York Pro as well.
Him and Krizo, and then Regan Grimes, all three of them guys, see where they stand in the pecking order.
All very comparable.
Yeah.
So
you got Bonac is a perennial. He'll absolutely be in shape. He's very consistent. And Cicherillo, you can't, you got to give him some credit because after, a layoff of some years, he came back and did reasonably well. And then he had a great year this year. I don't know if he's got the tools, to be up there and give a real run to a Nick or even a Regan. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's up there as high as third or even second. We don't know what Regan's bringing. So
it's possible. I think it's definitely possible based on what we saw from Sasan last show that he did. Just again, like you said, based on the conditioning factor of what he's expected to bring compared to what Regan is expected to bring at this point, which is unfortunate. And I hope that he proves everybody wrong. I hope that he does take second to Nick. I would love to see it. I think that would make for a very exciting lead up to whatever show he plans on doing next.
That would be huge for him.
I'll say this for Nick's sake, and because everybody thinks I hate Nick. It's like, look, I don't hate Nick. Okay, listen, he's a nice kid. He's a good guy. He's good for the sport. I just don't like his physique. Okay, and that's what we're talking about here. I don't, personally, I'm sure he's a very nice guy, right? But he better hope that Regan doesn't bring some spectacular thing because in hypothetical land, let's just say Regan showed up and he looked like freaking Mr. Olympia up there, right? And he upsets Nick, or let's just say Nick's off. Listen, he doesn't go back to back often and competing. Anything can happen. And I ain't wishing any bad on Nick, okay, for those that think you just want Nick to lose. Like, no. Listen, I don't, okay? But let's go down hypothetical lane. Let's just say Regan pulls an upset, right? That would put Nick in complete chaos of, okay, what do you do now? Like now you just competed twice. You didn't qualify. Now you either have to pick another show, which is going to be difficult, right? I mean, you got to hang on to a diet now, right? That's going to put you in jeopardy of getting on the Olympia stage, or you shut it down again. And he quite frankly, he can't afford to miss 3 Olympias in a row. So that'll be disaster for him and his brand and his fans and all that. Even the faithful started to fall off last year when he pulled out of the O, and even his own fan base was giving him shit. So now, do I think it's listen, anything's possible, right? But listen, I would love to see another battle just for the sake of bodybuilding. I think it'd be great.
Yeah, just as fans of the sport, I absolutely agree. Now, there's one last thing that I do want to ask you, Bob, when it comes to the Pittsburgh Pro in particular. You know, aside from the judges, you always have the best seat in the house. You know, there's no getting around it.
I do.
As you always do. You see things, frankly, you know, nobody else can see unless they're standing at that podium, you know.
True.
But like you said, you know, you've also been very critical of Nick in the past, you know, even going as far to say that you expect to be calling him to be 8th place at Nick's next Olympia. So my question for you is, do you still believe that Nick Walker will be somewhere? Let's not just say 8th, you know, in around there. We won't get too specific. But do you still think that Nick will be? Yeah. But do you still think that Nick could be in around that 8th place the next time he steps on stage after the Mr. Olympia, after what we saw in Pittsburgh?
Well, here's the thing with Pittsburgh, right? Listen, he is competitive that close to Derek because of Derek. Okay, if Derek looked like he did at the Arnold, it's not close. It's a good show and it's close in the term, but it's not like we're going into double secret overtime here. Okay, and sudden death. Okay, it would have been 1-2. Derek would have beaten him decisively. It would have been close, but yeah, he just doesn't have what Derek had. So it's Derek that makes it close. Nick looks great for Nick, and Nick looked as good. Interestingly, I saw a comparison pic of Nick from last year's New York and this year's Pittsburgh, and he looks almost identical, which good for Nick, right? But I thought it was funny in that when people were giving him shit about people saying that Martin should have beat him, he says, well, if Martin couldn't beat me at my worst, then what makes him think he can beat me at my best, right? That was a quote from Nick. And I thought to myself, well, if that's your worst, you look the same at New York. So I don't know, you know, whether you're chalking that up for ego's sake, you know, because you didn't think Martin was really going to contend against him, but Martin did. But back to your question, you know, do I think he will? Listen, I threw out 8th as a number, okay, for those people that want to peg me to the actually 8th. Listen, he could be substantially higher if the political climate doesn't change, and Hadi and Beirut can't even get to the Olympia from Iran. So that said, and here's why I pick him in that. He's going to have a time getting himself into that top 5. There's 3 good reasons why right off the bat: Samson, Hadi, and Derek. That's 3 right there that I don't believe he can beat. Now, we've always got to give the caveat, assuming everybody's 100%, okay, because we have no idea who comes in off, who missed it, who did this, who changed coaches, who ate a pizza, whatever. And listen, last year Nick wasn't even in the Olympia, so all those projections and you know, strategists were out because he was gone. It's like somebody losing in the first round of your bracket. You know, it destroys the entire bracket. So those are 3 guys that I think he would have a very difficult time getting past. So that already puts him in 4th. Now you've got Martin, you've got Andrew Jack, and you've got, again, assuming he can get her, Beirut Tabani. Beirut is not a guy a lot of people know because he hasn't been able to get here in 3 years and he's qualified for the Olympia, but he's a big guy and he's excellent. Gets in great shape. He would be difficult. So that's another 3 guys. Hunter Labrada, he's taken a year off, so he's not a consideration because he's beaten Nick before. So he's out. So that's 6 guys right there that I believe. Now, can he beat an Andrew Jack or one? Yes, he could, but they all have better framed physiques than he does. They all have a prettier physique, better symmetry, better shape, better proportion. Nick is a freak. He has to go on the freak factor. He's got to be 100%. He definitely has to control his midsection more because if he lost for any good reason against Derek, it was because of that. That can be a problem for Nick, is that he's got to control that midsection a little bit better. He can't do anything about his shape and his structure. So that puts him in the 6th, 7th, 8th group. in all fairness, and again, that's not anything that's snarky against Nick. It's a very realistic look at what these guys project. I think an Andrew Jack should be contending for Mr. Olympia. He's that good, but he used to show up on game day, of course, like everybody does. But if everybody showed up 100%, Nick is fighting for 6th or 7th. So I moved him up one spot for everybody. Okay, there you go.
Bob, I think you got to move him up a few more spots, man. You know, when you look at the field right now, consider the fact that okay, let's consider a couple of guys here. Derek, you say Derek and Nick. Well, Nick almost just beat Derek, and that's straight from Tyler Manion, you know, that it could have gone either way. Almost is close enough, and especially in the court of public opinion, which, look, we're YouTube commentators. We have no choice but to, you know, really take that into high consideration. But regardless of that, look at Martin. Has Nick ever lost to Martin Fitzwater? No.
Not that I know of, no. But he should have lost against him last year. So he's Martin. You got to put Martin in the same conversation, right?
But Nick is
over Derek. You got to say, well, Martin could have beat Nick. If you're saying
correct, correct.
Well, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Andrew Jack. Nick has never lost to Andrew either, ever. Nick has never been beaten by Andrew. So why would he be beaten by him this time? I don't think that it would happen.
Like we just said, there was guys like Lee Priest and those guys. Everybody was beating Ronnie Coleman before they weren't.
Well, you're right. You're right. Okay, that's fair to say.
Again, we always have to go on the idea that everybody's 100% because we have no other way to guess anything, right? So has he ever beaten Andrew? No. Does Andrew have a better physique than Nick? Yes. But he's got to bring it, right? I mean, he has to be in 100%. Again, if they're all 100%, who's the best? I'm looking at overall, you know, comparisons of structure, shape, symmetry, all those things, and muscularity, conditioning. Listen, Nick is as thick as a brick, right? He's got as much muscle, especially from the side, as anybody on this earth. And he's freaky.
Oh, he's one of the best.
But he's short. He's stumpy. He doesn't have a good X frame. You know, obviously, it's not nothing he doesn't know, right? Doesn't have a big V taper. Again, the midsection is a distraction and a problem. And let's not leave out the elephant in the room. The veins on the legs, the varicose veins, is not a good look. I mean, we're in the appearance business of judging a physique. So you can't just take something like that out. If it's distracting, and that is a little distracting, let's face it, that can also be a problem when it's close.
You don't think Nick has consider the back shot. You don't think that Nick has a good X-frame from the back?
From the back is better than from the front. Absolutely.
From the back.
Absolutely. Yes, he's got
he pushed Derek harder than anybody from the back ever that Derek's ever stood on stage with in the open. Ever.
Credit where it's due. Listen, from the back, he was very formidable, and he certainly held his own against Derek, who generally has been thought of to have the best back in the world. Now, again, Derek wasn't at his best, but that's irrelevant. You know, all the guys are there to do their best, right? So, listen, Nick is competitive. It's not like he's not competitive. The problem he's got is in the bread and butter shots, what I call the front double by the front lat are not good shots for him. When they come out and they stand there, I automatically go, the other guy looks better. You know, they all have better shape from the front. And listen, that's your hallmark. It's from the front. I don't care how many people say shows are one from the back. They're not one from the back. They're one from the front, the back, the side, in transition.
Absolutely.
Listen, how many times you hear people say, well, he wasn't holding his gut, and not Nick or anybody, right? Well, he wasn't controlling his waistline, right? Because in transition, all these things count. When you're splitting hairs, these are the world's best bodybuilders. And like we started, and like you said, Kenson, that, you know, it's not a robbery. Okay, stop, people. Nobody got screwed. Nobody got robbed. It wasn't politics. They got to a point that it was tied. Okay, they had it tied. It was that close. I was there.
Yeah.
I can absolutely see why they had it tied. Whether you like Nick's physique or not, you got to give him credit where it's due as well. He's a big muscular freak, and it's a bodybuilding show. So yes, I see it. But that said, somebody had to win and somebody had to lose. Do those little things come into play? To me, if it's a distraction, and things like, again, people don't like to bring it up for some bizarre reason, but again, things like the varicose veins on the legs, that is a distraction, right? It's not a pretty looking thing. It's not like, it's like somebody having tattoos that they're so tattooed that it does take away. It's a distraction from the physique. I've seen people with tattoos and it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't take away from the physique. The stomach, control or lack of, takes away from the physique. When that's bellowing out, or when you're standing there, your hands on your hips and you look like a block, that is not helping your cause when they're nitpicking and they're looking for a reason for somebody to win.
I hear what you're saying. If you look at a couple of things, though, one, Tyler actually said himself in his wrap up that Nick showing up the way that he did puts him in that conversation of the top 3 again at the Olympia. So that carries some weight. There's no question.
Moving out.
Well, here's the thing,
okay.
right? Look at it like this. Samson just got beat by Derek, right?
Right.
Derek is a former Mr. Olympia. Nick almost just beat Derek. So
where does that leave Hattie?
And Hottie, well, Mark, you don't think Hottie's going to make it in the top 3 again, but from what you told me last time,
hang on. I wasn't part of this conversation. Did somebody say that they didn't think Hottie would be in the top 3? Did you say that?
Then I retracted my statement. I was trying to be funny. Remember, I said his arms are all shriveled up like a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
I thought maybe you were smoking that crack like Ronnie Coleman, But
listen, he might very well place 4th. I picked Derek over Samson, and everybody said that I was smoking crack. You guys all laughed.
Yeah, that's true.
Priest.
Mark is the only person. That's true. That's true.
Okay, few things there. Number one, if Samson can't, again, I'm going to go on the hypothetical. I always got to do it, right? If everybody comes in 100%, then Samson Dowda would be Mr. Olympia again, okay?
I agree.
Better physique, better flow, better look, all the muscle in the world, presents them, blah, 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 right? Okay. Again, they're all 100%, okay? Derek can beat Hottie. Hottie can beat Derek. Samson can beat Hottie. You could take any 3 that you want out of it. They've all beaten each other, basically.
Oh, yes.
So, because the X factor to Samson is he's only hit 95% once, and that was last year when he won. He's normally closer to 90%, which puts him in the conversation, but he's always going to get beat by a Derek or a Hottie, somebody that can bring conditioning, or even a Nick, because Nick brings breaded conditioning. But Hottie Chupan might just be the smartest guy in the whole bunch, because while Samson and Derek and Nick are all busting their ass out there trying to qualify and trying to beat each other and trying to get titles and money, Hottie has been resting. He's been training. He's going to be well rested. And let me tell you something. I would not be shocked if at this year's Olympia you see the best Hottie Chupan that you've ever seen because of those factors. Nick is in, he potentially will be in uncharted waters, right? He's going to have to regroup and then get ready for the Olympia. Samson, again, who I didn't like going in the Arnold, for that reason, I thought he should have won the Olympia and been doing some of this, going around the world tour as Mr. Olympia, but take a break. He didn't opt to do that, and that's 3/4 wave.
Like the Queen.
Yeah, he didn't opt to do that, though. Listen, he wanted to go compete for $500,000. I can't take it away from the guy, but that's a whole lot of extra time and a whole lot of rest and a whole lot of off season that you're not getting. The body has to rest. It's any Mr. Olympia will tell you, and they've done many interviews, that the hardest thing he ever did was go in the Arnold and then try to go in the Olympia. And that's why most of them didn't go back to the Arnold after, because it's difficult. That said, again, Derek, same thing. Olympia, went to the Arnold, good for him, $500,000, Arnold title. Now he hangs on and goes in this because he wants to win the Triple Crown, which I actually ordered the Triple Crown from the Chinese place the other day. It was an excellent dish, I must say. So this is what you got, right? And now you got, again, the only guy sitting on the sidelines is Hottie Chupan. So I don't know. Maybe there's some strategy there because we don't know how this is going to impact these guys when it comes to Olympia time. Listen, receptors are a tricky thing in bodybuilding, okay? And you can see bodies starting to get burnt out as they go, where stuff's just not happening. It's, listen, Derek, I think, and nobody's brought this up to this point, but I'm going to bring it up. Derek was not a better Derek. Hang on, I'm plugging in some power here. Move it over. I don't know. I'm not so sure Derek's not a little burnt out, because what you just saw was you saw Derek at the Olympia who slipped to 3rd, right? Then you saw Derek rebound, go to the Arnold, great. But then you saw Derek have to hang on for another 6 weeks to go to this show, and he wasn't near as good. He was close, but he wasn't near as good as he was at the Arnold. Things weren't popping. Things weren't happening. In all due respect, he should have beaten Nick fairly easily, but he didn't. So hopefully for him, he can get a little bit of rest now. We got what, 5 months and some change till the O. So listen, he's still a young man. I mean, now's the time, to do these things. But it's very difficult to peak 2-3 times in a year. It just is.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Most definitely. Look, there's so many X factors, like you said, Bob, leading up to this 2025 Olympia. This is going to be an insane year in bodybuilding. It's already been off to an insane start. I am more fired up for this season than I was the previous, and last year was fantastic as well. We're really in for a treat this season, I think.
I think last year would have been a lot better if Nick hadn't have dropped out of the Olympia. I think that really.
Oh, listen,
sure.
And for those thinking I hate Nick and all that stupid shit that's out there. First of all, me and Nick were texting back and forth when I put out the A thing, and then he put the "Who the fuck is Bob" shirt, and then I asked him if he had a 2X, if I could have one. And listen, I texted him, and we were going back and forth. Listen, he gets it. We were having some fun and playing it up and all that shit. That's cool. Listen, he's a good sport when it comes to that stuff, and I appreciate that. And I did tell him last year. When we were on stage, he was down in the front, the guy's not in the show. And I told him, I says, and the year before when he was injured, the Olympia is a much better place with Nick Walker in it. Whether you love his physique, you hate his physique, or anywhere in between. He's a personality, and we need a lot more of those in the sport of bodybuilding. He's a damn good bodybuilder, and he belongs up there fighting, whether it's for first, whether it's for fifth, or whether it's for eighth. He belongs up with his counterparts up there on that stage. And also for those, I'll give you one more. The year he won the Arnold that I was emceeing, Arnold walked out there, gave him his trophy, and walked off the stage.
Yeah.
Okay? No interview, no nothing.
That's right.
I'm thinking to myself, well, what the hell was that like? Like, the guy just won your overall, and now whether he does that because he doesn't like his physique, or he doesn't, I don't know. It's Arnold, right?
I think he did that because he doesn't like his physique.
I did too, honestly, just being fair, right? So I took it upon myself to walk. It wasn't not in the script. I walked out there because I thought this guy deserves his moment to shine on this stage. He just won the show. He just won the Arnold. Here he is in the winner's circle. He doesn't even give the obligatory, you look fantastic. How did you train? What did you eat? He didn't even do that. He just literally shook his hand, and he walked off the stage. And I'm like, nah. So again, for those thinking that again, I got some personal vendetta against Nick Walker, I don't. Listen, I care about the kid. Again, that's why I went out there and gave him his just due and gave him his respect. That's why I called him out at the Olympia down in the front and gave him his respect. Got a round of applause from the people telling him, that it was world's a better place with him in it, and all that stuff. So, don't take anything too personally, folks. Listen, we got tickets to sell, and without people like me throwing lunatic type things out there, it's just no fun.
It's entertainment.
Yeah.
It is entertainment.
It's pro wrestling. It's pro wrestling.
Well, and everybody knows I'm a huge wrestling. I'd have this thing more like wrestling if I could, given my own drugs. There you go. The hacksaw. Hey-o.
I got that from an actual event, though. I wrestled with him.
No shit.
Well, not on the same card. I didn't wrestle him. He was in the
Yeah, I got you. He was great, man. Come on with the big 2x4. Who's that over there? I can't see it.
That's the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. I wrestled on the same card as him as well.
That's great, man.
They were older, more retired, but they were still.
Yeah, listen. Wrestling figured it out years ago. Bodybuilding hasn't yet. So it's whether we ever do or not, that's a whole nother show and discussion. But
a lot of the bodybuilders, they don't want to play. They don't. They take their emotions into it, and they don't what you and Nick are doing. I think most of people do understand that it's just a game, but people take it so seriously.
No, trust me, I could show you 10 million, DMs and people commenting on my shit, and all that stuff. And you say one thing about Ramon Dino, I got 4,000 dinosaurs that get sent to me. Those emojis. Yeah. The people fans are nuts. They're fanatics, right? That's what they are. But no, unfortunately, bodybuilding has never gotten it. They don't embrace it. Anybody who's seen me do the press conferences over the last 15 years, 20 years, whatever it's been, it's like pulling teeth. We've had some good and bad. I mean, the old ones were way better than the new ones, but if I got to hear, I'm just here to present my best package. And I'm not really competing. It's just me versus me and all that. It's like, guys, this ain't selling tickets, man.
Give
Okay,
us
nobody
something.
gives a shit about your package.
Yeah.
I heard that so many times in one press conference. I said we should be going after FedEx for a sponsorship with all the package talk, you know. But you know, it's like, guys,
No.
don't take it personally, okay? Talk a little out there and just, you know. Again, we had some epics. Don't get me wrong. Kai versus Phil, Melvin Anthony back in the day. We had some great exchanges at the press conference.
Bedell, Gustavo Bedell, and Craig.
Yeah, that's Gustavo. I mean,
watching
but
them
we had, you know what,
down.
we had bigger personalities back then, though. We don't. Unfortunately, we just don't have a lot of that these days. It's hard, you know. But
well, competitors are more accessible. The competitors are more accessible now, and they are putting more of themselves out there, which has a better lead up. I think there's more of an understanding of competitors and, you know, what kind of people they are. And I think the competitors now, it's starting to catch just slowly, but I think it is starting to catch to the point where they know that they have really, you know, an obligation to their fans to deliver on some of the points like you're talking about, Bob. I'm hoping that it translates over more so to like the Olympia press conference and things like that moving forward. But hopefully it is moving in that direction where, you know, people are starting to get it. And I think they are.
Well, 2 points to consider on this note, which is one, I wish we would do more things like you got the New York Pro coming up, right? Listen, I know the Olympia is 5 months away, but you're always out there selling, right? You're always out there promoting, and you're always out there, you know, putting the brand. You know, I would love things to have happened there where you get some Olympians up on stage, or they don't even have to be posing or anything, but, you know, like a press conference type thing. You know, right now, listen, they're off season. They got food in them, right? They're full of piss and vinegar, ready to go. That's where you hype up stuff, you know, much like you put a teaser for, you know, the next Avengers coming out, even though it ain't coming out for a year, because you want to get excitement generated. Number two, personally, I'm not a big fan of the press conference, even though I've been doing it for 20 years. I do because it's there. The time for these guys to be putting themselves out there and excited, this is not when they're half dead. You have no carbs in them the day before, got to get their tan, got to get this, got to get that. I have always been on the assumption that the best thing we could do there would be on the Sunday seminar. That is vastly underused, and it's the only thing that we do that's after the show, that we actually have results, that you could have all kinds of people up there talking, well, you never should have beat me. You know, what are you talking about? You've never beat me. That we've competed 10 times. And, you know, that's why I won, or, you know, this one got screwed. Now you can have all those great conversations. But the time to do it is not the Thursday before the show. So,
yeah,
you're right, actually.
My own 2 cents.
No, that would be an interesting dynamic of the questions that could come after the show. And that's something, like you said, that is not done in bodybuilding right now. I think that it could. You could definitely.
We do a seminar, which is nice, but I mean, it's not. Again, that thing, the Sunday showcase to me would be, I would supersize that thing for all those reasons. Again, we got winners, we got losers, we got results, we got people that think they should have won. We got my mother thinks I should have won every show I've ever been in.
Yeah.
We got all that stuff, right, to go on Sunday. But the press conference, to me, I would actually get rid of it, and I would include it in with the Thursday night Meet the Olympians. I would have like a whole media night type of thing where you could do some interviews and, you know, that type of thing, but more kind of made for TV, really. More like a talk show is what I've always envisioned. Where you got the desk and you got the mug there with the Olympia logo, and you bring people in because everybody's there anyways, right? Like everybody's there hawking their stuff, signing autographs, taking pictures with the fans. You could literally just have a runner go over and grab somebody, have a whole set, you know, made up that you're filming. There'd be a little audience there anyways because people are all over the place there. And you bring them on the couch, right? You bring them on. Hey, my next guest is your reigning Olympia champ. Please welcome Samson Dowda. And here comes Samson, and he sits down, and you have a 3-minute with him. Maybe you invite a couple, you know, Hottie and this guy kind of join them up there. Maybe it's 5-6 minutes long. All right, well, thanks very much, guys. Now you got to get back to your fans. And they can go back to their table and go sign autographs and things. Meanwhile, you go to commercial, right? Sell some time, and then you bring up somebody else. Okay, here's our first 4-time winner of the women's physique category. Here's Sarah Villegas. You could do this for 2 hours.
Natalia's got her this year.
Well, listen, Natalia looked great in Pittsburgh, right? She was fantastic. I actually had Natalia winning last year over Sarah, and they went the other way for whatever reason. But I tell you, man,
Sarah beat her the year before, right? And then
Sarah's beat her the last. Yeah, Natalia's only beat her once.
And Natalia should have beat her last year, I thought, as well.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I thought she looked great. I really honestly thought they were going her way. They kind of surprised me. And usually I'm pretty dead on, of which not only what I'm thinking, I can see where the judges are kind of going, but they fooled me with that one. But listen, there was a couple close ones.
Sarah's got some arms on her. Huge.
Let me tell you, it ain't over till it's over. For any of those athletes out there that think the night show is nothing but it's just a show, they're not judging. Let me tell you something. There was two, Terrence and Josema in Classic.
Yes.
They were flip-flopped earlier.
Yes, that's right.
I thought Josema was going to win, actually. It ended up going Terrence, but that was close like that.
Yeah, both those guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're going to have a rematch of that in New York as well.
That's a great rematch. And I tell you what, just a word. If I was running Josema's camp, he was ripped to the bone, by the way. This guy is he's diced, right? But if he could sacrifice, let's just give it a percentage, 5% of that. Let's just say he was 100% in condition, which I think he was, right? If he was 95% and came in just a little bit fuller, he would have won that show all day long. He would have been too much for Terrence, because Terrence is great, but Terrence is tiny. But again, just me, I just think maybe he was just a little stringy in the legs because he was so ripped up and diced. But you don't have to be that diced. You just don't. I mean, you can be that.
How close is his weight to the limit?
I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing on that. Again, I don't know particulars, but he could be, again, let's just say he had 2 or 3 pounds, he could go up.
Yeah.
This kid would be
2 or 3 pounds is huge for.
That's huge. Yeah. And he would just be that much full. He would still be the most diced man in the show at 97%.
Yeah, I could see that he might have been a little bit more shredded than Terrence, just from the pictures and footage, obviously.
Oh, he was, and Terrence was shredded, but Terrence is very well put together, and his posing is second to none. Suffice maybe him and Logan Franklin can go back and forth on Best Poser awards because they're both excellent. But listen, Terrence, I can't take anything away from him, but it was that close that could go either way in New York.
Last thing I want to ask you about, the guest posing, kind of overshadowed by the Nick versus Derek thing. What did you think of Keon Pearson in particular?
Keon's an animal, man. I tell you what, that kid, I mean, I'm on the fence with him because I go back to Flex Lewis, okay, who was a close friend of mine. Flex could have gone in the open if he wanted to. I mean, especially towards the end of his career, 5, 6, and 7 when he won, his 5, 6, and 7th victory. People were, you got to go to the open, go to the open, go to the open. And my advice to him was simple. Listen, bro, you could probably do okay in the open. Maybe you take a 5th, 4th. Listen, it's very respectable, right? But I don't know. I think I'd rather be the champ of what I'm doing than 4th place in the open, just to give that, right? And to his credit, he did. He hung on. He got 7 to his credit, which we will probably see beaten if Keon actually stays in the 212 because he's that good. Keon, I see in the same. Could he do well in the open? Sure. I think he could do very well. He held his own against Sampson in that pose down. His body, he's got freaky, body parts, right? His shape is just phenomenal. But I don't know where he is in the weight cap. I don't think he's knocking on the door of 212. I think he's under that. But I don't know. I think I would just rather be the champ for that, at least for a few more years. I think I got to put 3 or 4 in my back pocket. And then maybe try the open and kind of see what he does. But he can hold his own against anybody in the world. I mean, his shape, symmetry, and proportion is beautiful. And he's got a lot of muscle, and he finally figured out how to get in shape because that was the only thing holding him back before, and he figured it out. And Keon is great, man.
Oh, yeah. I would like to see Keon do something like we saw Sean Clarita do and even compete at some pro shows outside of the Olympia or Arnold Classic.
Yeah.
See how you stack up,
I think he'll do that first.
Yeah. Pick a decent lineup because I think he deserves that for himself. But I would like to see Keon do something like that. And then he can get a good feel of the playing field, how he's going to stack up. Like I said, go up against some bigger names, maybe do something against Andrew Jackson. There's a big height difference there. Go for it. I would like to see that. I think he will eventually. I don't know when.
I would only advocate for him to do an open show if it was directly after the Olympia. This way it doesn't impede. Like right
That's
now,
fair.
listen, he can.
Yeah.
Well, and here's why, right? Like he could go to Dubai, which is a huge purse this year. Badr Bodai doubled the prize money, so it's substantial, right? I don't know, it's 140,000 for first, 150 or something. It's up there, right?
Holy shit,
now,
man.
Well, you figure, well, shit, if you're going to go for it, you go, but here's the problem, right? It's in June, and it's like, well, it's right in the middle of his prep to go. Like you don't want to mess up your prep for the Olympia when you're the champ, right? So if I'm Keon, like let's just say he goes, I don't think anybody can beat him unless he comes in off. Nobody's going to beat him in the 212. Nobody. If he wins, and then there's a show, the next month, kind of like what C-Bum did, right? Perfect. That was done well, right? Don't impede your chances at your title. He always said he wanted to compete in one open show, but he stuck to his word. He did, which arguably I could have had him winning. But and then go for it. And then listen. Then Keon would actually have his the ability to choose if he was qualified. And I mean, he's qualified for life as an Olympia champ for the 212. But he could go in either one of them. He'd have to pick one. You can't do both. And if I was him again, what would I pick? I don't know. Something about being a champ to me has a lot more weight, when it comes to sponsorships, that you're the best in the world at what you do and all that. So only if he outgrows that would I consider the open if I was him.
Yeah. If he's right at 212,
right.
then make, but yeah, there's no point if you're under 212.
Yeah.
I don't think
or
so.
even like Chris did, put on a couple of pounds, fill out a little bit. Don't worry about the weight cap if you're close. He's not close now, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I think that would be good. Something just after the Olympia, like you said, Bob. That would probably be best case scenario for him.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe do you have any shows that you're doing after the Olympia?
What is after that? I could be in. We got a whole bunch of possibilities. But, I've talked to people. I've had the people that put on the China Pro. I just talked to them at this show, so they're interested. I get people interested all the time. It's when they find out the big buck that I demand. Sometimes
sometimes you charge the big bucks.
Sometimes it falls off the shelf, but listen, it is what it is, man. So
best MC going.
There's no question there. Look, happens in diving all the time. I get it.
Yeah, it's worth what it's worth.
Hey, money talks, man. Money talks. But look, all right, let's wrap it up there, gentlemen. Bob, I really appreciate you coming on again, man. I appreciate that. Every time that I have you on, that is absolutely without question. You put out exactly the way that you see it and exactly the way that you think. And that's very, very much appreciated.
Well, that's because, as you know, my friend, I may not always be right, but I'm never wrong.
Yeah, that's I love it. I do. Mark, as always, pleasure, man.
Pleasure.
All right.
Always.
Mark, keep putting out those quirky videos.
I'll try. If God willing, I'll continue on. Try to. I do my best to try to, keep respectful, and then you got these fans that are always demanding, make the biggest guts and the biggest this and the biggest that, and those videos do well, but I try to
listen. Have some fun with it, but just make sure I'm winning every time. Okay.
All right.
All right, guys. Appreciate it, man.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. I'll catch up with you guys again soon.
Peace out. Later, boys. All right.